Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender in Europe, designed by Salvatore Vasta, published by GMT Games. This is the East First campaign series, and we are going into July. Just as a quick recap, I hung on in Russia till August of 41, which makes the end of the game will be July of 1946. And he is currently in May, he pushed into Belgium. In June, even with poor weather, he made the Sedan breakthrough and is sitting on the Marne and is getting ready to roll into July here. So that's where we are, and that's where we'll go. Pop up all the little boxes. There we go. Okay, here we go. Nobody declared war. We know what the weather is. Economies are fairly straightforward. Germany's at full. Everybody's at full. So we just moved the counters around. The Americans did give an extra one to the French, thinking that they might need it if I had flipped units or whatever. We go into strategic warfare. I do have 2 bombed markers, so I will be at +4 and he's at 0. We both have markers. We both play them. So we're both halved. He rolled dismally. I rolled well, so he ended up losing a factory anyway. And then we roll to see when our stuff's coming back. I'm coming back in 2 turns. He's coming back in 1. So he'll have his sub back to use next turn. And I have a marker then as well. So, because I had 2 ultras on the sheet. That's why it was no-brainer for him to play his subs, because he knew I would play mine. Strategic movement. He's way over here. He's going to move the first garrison from Kiev to Sebastopol, but he also has the first garrison sitting on the Kerch Peninsula. So, again, we still have the 2 first garrisons on the map. So I think he's going to have to, maybe take the 4th garrison from Copenhagen or the 3rd garrison in Frankfurt to do that particular strategic move. I've already contacted him about that. We need to correct that because it's been going on for a while. Onwards. Strategic movement for the West was to pick the guy up that I dropped off in Marseille and just put him on the Italian border. And the Soviets had basically emptied out Rostov because I have a tank to build and put the infantry up here behind Kursk. And that's it. Now we're into operations phase. Basically everything's going to happen over here. I got my bombed markers off of him. And then we come down here to airplane fights. He's at -2 and I'm at -4. He rolled dismally, so he had to take 2 sorties to take out mine. And he goes to the next guy and rolls dismally, and same thing. Problem when your Germans are up at those high sorties is that if they roll dismally, they're going to have to spend 2 sorties to take out the French. So then he started with this panzer. I would have started like the first panzer driving southward, but he chose to drive northward first. Again, playing live opponents, they do things different than what you might think is best, and you have to see how it works out. I have found many times that some of the stuff that he does seems to work, and I'm like, I have to think about doing that in the future. We're setting his movement points because he has 8 left. He starts off at +4. I start off at +2. I think we go to combat commitment. No brainers. He goes up to 6. I go up to 4. He rolled a 10, which is, not bad. I rolled a 1, so 1 plus 4 is a 5. It was a good thing that I did do that because a 10 to a 3 would have been a DD, but a 10 to a 5 is a DR. So I didn't get flipped. Did get retreated, but didn't get flipped. So takes the hex, attacks me again. Again, I'm just using up the French tanks here trying to keep this guy alive as long as possible to make him use as many movement points as possible to kill it, because I figure he's going to die. There's no place for me to retreat. I didn't set it up so that I could retreat these guys. If I had, he could have ended up like flipping me, then destroying me, and then having a no enemy zone of control and like be able to walk across the Somme or walk into Calais or something. And I just didn't want to take that chance. He's an airplane, so he's +6, and I'm a 12, which is 12. And I managed to roll a 9, which is another retreat. And now I don't have anything else left to play on here. And he went ahead and he wanted to make sure, so he's +6 to +2. He didn't get the... He rolled the die, so it looks like it's only +4, but it really should have been a +6. So I told him that's actually a 12, and a 12 to a 6 on the combat table is just enough for a retreat rather than a flip. So he took that, and then the British moved their airplane. I thought about putting it in Southampton, which I probably should have done. But instead, I went ahead and just flew it all the way to Plymouth. Said, what the heck? Put it with where a fleet is. And that was probably not correct for me, as you'll see in a little bit. Now he has 4 movement points left, and he can attack Calais, Lille, or across the Somme. And Calais only has a +1 in it, so I think he went after Calais. He originally was going to attack Lille, and I'm like, but it's only +3 to +2 there. If you attack either one of these other 2 hexes, it's +3 to +1. You have a better chance. He was like, you're right. And then he rolled dismally, and I rolled just well enough to not be dismal. So basically ended that activation. So he started up here, and he says, okay, let's get rid of Lille. I don't have anything to play, so it's all up to him. Throws his last airplane in there. 3, 4, 5, yes. So he's +5 to +2. He rolls dismally, and I don't. So now he's down to 4 movement points left, and it's only going to be a +3 to a +2. And he rolls the 6 this time, so now he's 6 + 3 is a 9, and I roll a 3. Net 3. A 1 + 2 is a 3, a 9 to a 3 is a DD, which is what he needed. So he's DD'd, and he takes Lille. My national will goes down. Went down 1 for the guy and 2 for the city. I lost a factory. And then I think here I had to point out to him that he has a no enemy zone of control there, so he could actually move out of that hex and go do something else if he wanted. And he just decided to go ahead and let's use up some British assets here. So he's +4 to my 1. So I threw everything. I threw the kitchen sink in, an airplane, and the tanks. So it's +4 to +5. He rolled a 7. I rolled a 9. The 9's not enough to get an AS on him. So he's going to use up his last 2 movement points and just say, I'm going to do it again. And the reason why I'm using up my assets here, I don't want to allow him, at +4 to +1, he can get a DE. If I roll a 1, he rolls a 6. Don't want to take that chance. Everybody goes, it's a 1 in 36 chance. If I lose the BEF, it's going to be 2 turns before it's even back on the continent, and 3 turns before it's actually effective. In 3 turns, the channel ports will be gone. And I'm already expecting to lose the Western Desert Force defending Paris. Yes, I have the Canadians coming back, but I think in order to hold the Brittany ports, I'm going to need both the BEF and the 1st Canadians. At least that's my belief at this point, is that's the only way I'm going to hang on to the Brittany ports for any length of time. I mean, sooner or later, if he wants them, he's going to take them. I just don't have the ability to stop him if he really wants to take them. But I can maybe drag it out so that maybe there's 1 less panzer on the Eastern Front when the Russians come in, which is the idea. If If I can keep a couple of panzers over here, busy trying to take the Brittany ports, makes it a little bit easier on the Russians in 1943 in the east, whenever they decide to roll the die and come back in. So that's why I'm using up assets here. Yes, I'm actually thinking that far ahead. And you're going to see me do it again here. I'm going to basically be using up the airplanes up here in England. And this is why if I'd had the guy in Southampton instead, I could have used him for some of these battles. I flew him too far away, so he couldn't be used in these battles. I could have had maybe a few less sorties on the ones in London and on the coast there, but I didn't. Oh yeah, so it was, the first one was, +4 to +3, and he rolled a 6, and I matched him. He rolled a 2, I rolled a 3. Now we're into the next one. Again, I used a sortie. He rolled a grand total of 6, and I rolled an 8. And so he got to attack again. He rolled a 7. I rolled an 8. These are net numbers I'm rattling off. And so he went again. I used up my airplanes. So he rolled an 8. I rolled a 7. And he did it again. Oh no, and then he was done with that one. And then he moved this guy up 1, 2, 3, and he's attacking across the Somme. So he's +3 to +1. He rolled a 9, and I managed to match him. Aha! His 9 to my 7 net. And he's like, So he attacks again. He rolls a 1, +3 is a 4. And I matched him. So we matched die rolls, and in this case, matching die rolls helped him. 9 to matching die rolls when you're at +2 for a high die roll doesn't work, but matching on a low die roll does. He ended up with a 4. I ended up with a 2 on a 4 to 2 here. 4 to 2 is a DR. So guess what? He breached the Somme. And now I think he spent 2 points to move the Africa army down here. And I think he could have done it like by moving one of these infantry units over here in Sudan or across the river or whatever. If he moved Sudan, he still could have gotten his 2 attacks off, and it would have cost him less production points. But I think in general, when I'm attacking in France, I would not bother bringing the mobile infantry over because it costs 2 points to activate. Just leave it garrisoning somewhere in the east, and since he went east first, the mobile army is going to be more useful in the east because it's such a big front that he can run wherever he needs to plug a hole. And just bring another regular infantry over here because, it's a constrained space and it saves you some production points to be able to do that. But anyway, British throw up an airplane. He throws in his tanks marker here. So he's +3 to +3. He only rolled a 3, which was a 6. And at +3, I needed to roll a 1 for him to get a retreat. And it didn't. So I stopped that attack. Then I think he just went ahead and attacked at +1, and I went ahead and threw the last airplane saying, I really want to hang on to Paris. At +1 to +1, I didn't want to take the chance of getting a split and him getting a retreat. As it turns out, he was going to roll a 1 anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But then I rolled a 6 plus my 3 is a 9, and 2 to 9 is actually one of those AA results. Very rarely do you get those, but usually only on a 1-6 split in defender's favor. Sometimes you get an AA result. So that was like 2 more points that he's going to have to spend for them. Then he brings somebody over to Rotterdam. I did explain to him that there was a way I could invade there if I really, really wanted to. It would have involved a lot of shenanigans, but I could actually do it. Not with anything within force. It would have been like the Home Guard garrison unit or something. So he was being good and paranoid, and then he takes the 17th, If you count from Stuttgart, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because the Maginot forts don't have any zones of control. So you can use the rail line to get all the way into Belgium, and then just 2 squares straight down takes him into, what is that, 30, 16. So there's no chances for me to like surround units and isolate things or whatever. So oh, and there I was talking. He was talking about. I said this is a fort that most French players will say, "Oh, I need a unit," and they'll give up this one, and that would then allow the Germans to isolate Strasbourg here. This this hex and take it by assault, especially since he has his heavy artillery coming back and stuff. It's like, yeah, you really don't want to let the Germans do that. So I basically told him, I said, you can pretty much guarantee that those 4 units are staying in those forts like forever, almost. Unless, of course, he doesn't have any garrisons, hemming them in. Then I might have somebody run out and try and play games with the Germans, recapture cities or something. But so we went into Western Ops. I did think about how could I do anything to this Panzer, and it's like maybe I can be +1, +2 guys if I do an assault. +3, I could fly an British airplane over to be +4, 5. He's a 4. +5 to +4. Not likely I'm going to get a DD out of that. So maybe if I'm really, really, really lucky, I can flip an armored unit. Then I went and looked at his production points, and I'm like, he's got like 18 points. So if he spends 2 to flip over the Africa army, then he'd have to spend 2 more to flip over the Panzer. He still gets all 4 of his airplanes back, and he can still build the guy he's got on his card. So I was like, is this really worth even trying? Or should I try to set up to deal with his surprise attack marker coming in August? So I chose the latter. So first off, I bring the guy in Corsica back up to Marseille, and then the French fleet will end its turn in Gibraltar rather than in Marseille. And I play my naval evacuation marker on the BEF and say, get me the heck out of Dodge. Put him in Le Havre. And then I roll 4, so it's going to come back in 4 months. So I won't see it for a while. Then I move the armored unit over here to the bend in the Loire there to try and hang on to the river line. And then I move the guards unit, again, goes up to hold on to the Seine. So I'm trying to, I don't have a lot of real good defensive positions here. The Seine's about it, Seine and the Marne. Since I'm on the Marne, I'm hoping I can retreat and hold on in the Seine. And then I had this guy that was adjacent to that armored unit and said, no, I'm not going to give him a free attack. I went and I hid behind Paris, and like I said, I pretty much am expecting the Western Desert Force to die. My goal here is to make him spend maybe 2 units to take Paris. If I can have 1 unit's full set of movement and another unit's partial set of movement, then pretty much I've achieved my goal because it cuts down the ability of that surprise attack marker to affect me. And I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. I was done. The Russians. Oh, that was me doing my supply. 2 ground units in, whatever, and I did this. And then it was really stupid because I ran these guys up for supply on the French. The French are supplied in Calais. It's a home city. So that was just dumb on my part. I just wasted a bunch of resources. And the thing is there's no rule against me doing that, so I can't really take it back. Now you will notice that I ended my turn without taking throwing bomb markers. There's a reason for this. When I get done with replenishments, this guy's going to be down to 2. each of these fighters are going to be at 4. Once his airplanes are used up, that bomber can be used within 5 hexes as a tactical bomber. So I'd have 4 sorties available, so if I need to, I can actually have him go, like, help out at Paris or at Le Havre, even though I've used up my other 2 aircraft, without having to move this guy forward. So that was why I didn't do bombed. He's going to have his sub, I'm going to have my ultra, we're going to have each other, probably nothing's going to happen, or he'll get his back or whatever. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's really not going to go anywhere next turn. Yeah, it would be helpful if I had an extra couple bomb markers, but then I wouldn't have the extra sorties to help me out in the defense of France. And I think the sorties in the defense of France are more important than German factories at this point, because next year, in 43, I'm going to see American bombers, and then we'll have 3 of them flying against him, and it's important to see if I can be basing out of France or if I have to base out of England to do those attacks. So that's what I'm doing there. That's why I didn't do that. And the Russians made one huge move. They moved a guy that was in clear terrain and put him on a rail line, and they were done. So we go into no supply phase. That doesn't it. And we're going to go back to replacements. That's going to be the Germans over here. They have 18 left, so they spend 12 and flip him 14. And in the West comes over and does... I've brought down the French Air Forces and their convoy. The West. I forget to do the Americans here. I do them later. So I bring down all my my fighters. Then I brought down that convoy. I think I did this convoy here. Brought down the bomber. And flipped over the BEF. And in the Russians, they have 3 armored units. I just did one down there in Kursk. So they spend their points to flip all their armored units face up. And there's no upgrades. We go to mobilization. The Germans built their infantry here. The British build the 1st Canadian in Cardiff. And the Russians build their armor down here in Rostov, which is where I had moved the strategic move to get the guy out of the way so I could do that. And I went ahead and moved the guy down that I would do in the end phase. We went to diplomacy, and I kind of blew right by this. So you'll see me just kind of skip through the phases. I go off to end of turn. I start moving stuff, from the turn track to the faction card. And about the time I got done doing this, he's like, we're in diplomacy phase, aren't we? And I was like, shit, yeah, we are. So, rather than put everything back, I think we just backed up the turn here. So I was checking on my factories. And then we basically said, oh wait, we still needed to do diplomacy. So you see me here. Kind of backed it up a bit. Basically, he didn't have any points to spend. The U.S. said, no, I don't want to. The reason why I'm not pulling with the U.S., even though they're free, is because if I pull a political failure, that would give him a pro marker in Italy, and he has 1 in the cup. He conquers France, that gives him 2 in the cup, and a freebie, which means he gets Italy and can still do things to me, because he also has pro marker in Finland. So I had to be real careful on It's like if the Russians pull the political failure, he can take Finland or he can put a pro marker in Greece. Those are not nearly as devastating to me as him pulling Italy. And the Russians pulled a no event, so it was kind of like, no problem. And the Germans are, by the same token, don't want to pull until they have the cup somewhat stacked for them, because if they pull a political failure and I get a pro in Rome, then you'll see me, start doing things. Makes it almost impossible for him to get Italy. Okay, now I think we go to end of turn phase. He gets his events, and we're done. So, right or wrong, I have no idea if I'm defending France right in this kind of situation. Like I said, this was wasted resources here. Me supplying them with the fleet. It's like I didn't need to. They could be supplied by themselves through Calais because they're adjacent to Calais or in Calais, and I just was not thinking. So, otherwise, his airplanes are a little far away now, up here in the Dusseldorf and just north of Dusseldorf. So he's going to have to spend a sortie on each to get them down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess he can attack there with this one. But he's going to have to fly at least one sortie down here to get somebody down here close enough to be able to affect Paris. And, if he has a surprise attack marker and he's attacking at +4, +5, 6, puts the paradropper on there, he might have a pretty good chance of, flipping me on the first attack, and then it's not so bad for the second attacks. So my idea is I really want to make him take 4 attacks to take Paris. If I get 4 attacks to take Paris, I think I'm doing well. I have a feeling it's only going to take 2. And then he's going to be able to attack across the Seine somewhere, whichever place he chooses. And he should take Calais and the unit up to the north too. So I see a minimum of 6, 7, 8 lost. Maybe as much as 9. I could see him getting 11 will points this turn, maybe even 12, depending on how the dice roll and where he places a surprise attack marker. So, I'm in for a really big fireworks display here, I think, in come August. Anyway, I'm Jul42. If you like my videos, please subscribe. Hit that like button so YouTube's algorithms will keep our videos up and let everybody see them. And until we meet again, stay safe. Bye-bye.